Okay, so getting into housing. With housing, some of the more major, more popular recruiting companies will probably provide housing. You can tell if it's one of the more major ones depending on how many listings they have. If they have 3,000, 1,000 listings, then it's one of the more major ones. They usually have a more elaborate website with a whole section on benefits and maybe even some articles for you to learn more about therapy, traveling, nursing, traveling, any travel job that you want to do. Usually they have a whole little section on their website for it, and that's how you can tell it's one of the more major ones. Host Healthcare, TGL, AMN will provide housing, and it says it on their websites. So you have to consider when they provide housing, your pay will be different. This is going to be your pay package without housing. And sometimes when you can't find housing, let's say your housing is going to be, whoa, that's way more than I even make in a week, then you might consider the housing, especially if you're not just by yourself. If you're with kids, your partner, or pets, it might be easier to just and more affordable for that route. You might get more of an income that way. Most of the time, you can find housing in the price range, but if you can't, you're gonna have to weigh your options. Of course, if you're traveling with a partner that is also working maybe online or as another healthcare professional, then that will supplement your income. But if you're not, then housing provided by them would work. So, what even is a stipend? A stipend is an amount of money that's given to you weekly or yearly basis, almost like an allowance. So, how do you qualify for a tax-free housing stipend? You need to find a contract job that's at least 50 miles away from your home. And once you do start that job, you need to have proof that you're paying rent to the home that you're living in, or proof that you're living there. And I have not been back home in over a year, but I still pay rent to my mom because we live in my mom's house. And when I go back to Florida, that's where we're going to be going to. So some people that can't get the job more than 50 miles away from their home may still receive housing, meal, and incidentals stipend, but it may not be tax free, which means you'll just get a smaller percentage of it once taxes comes out. It still might be a good deal. But if you can somehow manage to get a position 52 miles away and have an hour drive, that might be a little bit more worth it for you. But some people will have to travel 4 hours to travel 50 miles, just depending on what you can do. You need to have the paper trail. It's better for having money orders or checks in case the government asks you for the information. I've been doing screenshots of payments, monthly payments. So just make sure you stay on top of that because you may be audited. So how to find housing yourself. Airbnb used to be the wave a couple years ago, but now it's just been too expensive. I've been able to find housing for every one of my contracts for the last about 2 years through Furnish Finder. I end the conversation every time somebody asks me for an application or a background check through the app's key check. So I just continue it because usually that's asking too much for me and then it starts feeling weird. So you just got to trust your gut with housing. And then you could use a bunch of the medical professional specific housing sites. I've never used it, but I know if you went to go try it and sign up for it, you'll have way more options, either as a single traveler or with your family or even pets. There's something called Meds Housing, MEDS housing.com. There's travel nurse housing. There's something called rotating room, transplant housing. There's an app called Hot Pads. That's more like for a single traveler looking to be a roommate. There's a lot of options. There's another one called Gypsy Nurse. Advantis Medical Staffing has some resources for you. Vivian Health, where you search through most of your job listings, also has housing suggestions for you too. A lot of the major recruiting companies will have articles on their websites for you so that you can look up even more housing options. So if you took the time to sign up for a few of those, you'll have way more options. There was one time that, like, if you're just getting started, I can see this, you doing this. But there was one time that I had to be in a contract job literally next week and didn't have the money to buy housing and didn't know where to find housing. There was no housing there. I didn't have any money to get there, just gas to get there and food. What you can do is now Affirm, AFFIRM, is really saving lives out here because you can go on their website and there's hotels like Quality Inn, Hawthorne, Extended Stay by Wyndham that, depending on your purchasing power, can give you up to 2 weeks of free hotel stay. Well, not free, but sometimes it requires a down payment, sometimes a zero down payment, which is what we were able to do. And then you don't have to pay it for a couple weeks after that. So that gives you the chance to start getting paid before you have to pay housing, which is really, really convenient if you're a young traveler just starting out, first job, don't have any money to go traveling. Because remember, everything will be reimbursed, but it's not until probably 2 weeks later that you get your first check, right? You're traveling there, you're starting, and then the next week you get paid. So Affirm has definitely saved our bottoms a couple times. And then just use all your resources. You can always find more and more and more options, more appear. I'd be on Furnish Finder and feel like, oh, I have no more options, but then I check a few days later and then there's 3 more options. So don't give up on housing. Really exhaust all of your resources first before you consider getting recruiting housing and therapy cats or lizards just yet. But as far as dogs, I've seen therapists negotiate bringing their dog with them to work. Sometimes if they're well trained, they can be used for therapy. I'm not too sure about a nursing home, but I actually saw them in nursing homes, so that should be good. I don't know about hospitals or really sanitary places. Maybe like in a psych unit, it could be beneficial, but you never know what you'll get there. So you just gotta see if that's an option for you. But that's a question to ask your interviewer if that's a possibility. So yeah, and with your personal items, make sure that they fit in your car or whatever you're traveling. It's gonna be really expensive to ship everything every time. So it's really best if you can get a little hitch on your car or something on the top rails. Or if you are going with the whole family, if you have an RV, you can rent a U-Haul. If you have somebody else traveling with you that can drive the car and you drive the U-Haul. Traveling and moving your own things is going to be a lot more affordable than having it shipped. And there's definitely things that you can add to your car. Even if you have a small sedan, there's things that you can add to it. You just got to do a quick Google search. But pack light if you're single, because it will feel that much freeing. You realize that you don't really need that many things, but if you do need something, you can get it as you need it, and you'll realize how much stress-free your brain will be when you're home and you have nice space. And so you can travel with your entire family, all of your pets, and a lot of your personal items, as long as you are mindful of where you're going and how they'll be put. Because with change, people need space to adjust and to adapt in a non-overbearing way. So as long as you find a house or a home that you can really be comfortable in, have your own space, have space for the things that you need, because the clutter will make your mind feel cluttered. So it's really important to think about that. and then also who you're going to be staying with. You need to make sure that you're interviewing with them and asking them really thorough questions. It's kind of weird, but from experience, you might as well just tackle this all out in the first phone call than to experience it months later or weeks later. So things like, when do you cook? When do you sleep? What's your sleep schedule like? When do you work? Do you travel for work? Do you have guests over? How long are you in the kitchen for to make meals? Um, is there gaps in the doors that I should know of on the top or on the sides? Will I be able to hear the toilet flushing from across my room? How long does the hot water stay on for? Things like that. Do you have access to the AC? Is is the washer and dryer, can I use this about it? Do I need to supply my own things? So these questions are going to save you down the line. And because you never know, like when me and my partner were staying somewhere, we had a gap under the door. And the family that we lived in this beautiful room in a house, they cooked for 8 hours a day. And sometimes we would just go out for the microwave and then come right back in because we, didn't know that they'd be in the kitchen the whole time. And of course, the sound barrier was close to none. So these are all things that you need to consider before you get there. And that's something that you have to decide that you want to live with or not. But as far as for when you're traveling with a whole family or a lot of items, I would recommend opting out for sign up for the 13-week contract if that's all there is, but definitely go for closer to 5 to 6 months to get a really good experience of the place that you're staying in. It feels like after doing this for a while that 3 months fly by so fast because you really only start getting comfortable in your routine as little as like 3, 4 weeks in maybe, and then after that it's just routine for a little bit unless you break out and do events, be more social, slow down your weeks through meditation or etc. or other ways.